got a number of friends who are singers, musicians. My partner works in film and video games. And I was lucky enough for a few years to be the CTO of a visual effects company. So art's kind of surrounded me for a long time. A lot of my friends are from that industry still, so I'm kind of constantly surrounded by these incredibly talented people. It's very humbling. And as a technologist that can sort of barely hold a pen in my hand, it's easy to look at these kinds of artists and see them as, incredibly talented people that we can never measure up to. And it's easy to make the conflation between artistry and the medium that you work in. And what I mean by that is that, if you take a traditional artist, I'm going to use the work of the amazing Martin Bergqvist. He's a fantastic Swedish concept artist. Somebody like Martin can take a blank piece of paper, he can doodle it out into a very rough sketch of what he's thinking of, and then build it out from nothing to an absolutely amazing photoreal scene. Now that to me is magic. It's something that's beyond my capabilities. And it's easy to forget that every single day, every one of us as technologists, we work with artistry. Because artistry is all about bringing something out of nothing, right? And that's really what we do every single day. And if you think about the man who made this, we think of him as being one of the world's greatest artists. It's very easy to forget that he put as much of his artistry into technology as he did into making pretty pictures, right? So there's just as much validity in being a technologist who's artistic as there is in being a painter or a drawer or a game artist. Anybody who's ever seen a high-level design for a greenfield site that somebody's put together from scratch knows what I'm talking about, right? You're starting with absolutely nothing, and you're going to try and build out an entire infrastructure for a customer based on basically nothing. The thing that makes the artist is not the medium that they work in, but the artistic spark. And the spark is something all of us have. It's something all of us share, right? Most of us forgot that we had it when we were kids, but we've all still got it, and we forget how much we still use it every single day. It's a uniquely human concept that we have. It's this ability to form the kernel of an idea, apparently from nothing, and turn it into something which is new and exciting to the people around us. Of course, we're all influenced by our experiences in life. We're influenced by our environment. But when you find something that's uniquely new, something that's truly, you've never seen it before, and you ask that person, where did this come from? Often they can't tell you. There's no prompt behind it, right? It's something that's uniquely human to us. It's an evolutionary necessity, right? Throughout, we would not have survived as a species if we didn't have people who could see dangers and changes in the environment and say, we need to do something we haven't done before, something that is not a learned experience, something that I can't copy from someone else. I have to be able to say, there is a new way of doing something, and I can see a brighter and better future. I can see a better way of doing things. If you look at everything you work with every day in technology, that is what happened. Somebody looked at it and said, there's a better way. That's where the artistry comes into it. If we think about the world of data that we sit in today, this is becoming even more important, of course. How many times have you heard the word vision in a meeting? This is what we're talking about. It's that artistic spark when we say, we need to have a better vision for this company. What somebody's asking you to is to reach into your artistry and imagine a better future. So where I see this most is if you look out in kind of the skunk works and the labs and the innovation hubs out at our customers, we see this spark, this artistic spark being nurtured. We see ideas becoming reality, and we see people testing them out and taking them on board as part of their new realities. They're the places where you really get to see this spark in action. We can see it in innovative ways that people are now kind of reaching into dark data sources and pulling out these absolute gems that we didn't think were possible. Publishing out data products that allows the next person in the chain to innovate and think about what they could do that's different than before, because now they've been given a new stimulus. It's a playground for our artistry, this new realization that data has value. Some of us have worked with data for years. We always knew it had value, right? But now we can actually show the rest of the business that this matters. And this is important because for the first time in a long time in a lot of companies, we're seeing the data people as part of the strategy. We're seeing them at the table with the rest of the business. And that's how it should always have been. But everyone is beginning to understand the value behind the data. And this happens because we're able to ignite their spark as well. We're able to show them data that they had never seen before. And it gets their juices going. It gets them thinking about their next possibility. It is our role as technologists, if you don't work directly with data, it's our role to create the environments that people can work in, where this spark can thrive and it can grow. If you think about it, we have lots of teams and lots of roles where we call them innovation teams, innovation hubs. I'm the innovation lead. Innovation is not a gatekeepered commodity. This artistic spark is at the center of all innovation, and since we all have the spark, we're all responsible for innovation. The role of the innovation teams and the innovation hubs, the sandboxes and the test beds, is to grow everybody else's spark. It's a very important thing for us all to remember. When I meet with customers, one of the most common questions I still get is, I'm expecting some deep ethical AI query, and the most common question I still get is, what should we be doing with AI? And it's a very fair question, right? The number of possibilities these days are effectively infinite. There was a time when we said, okay, we're limited by the technology that we have available to us. There isn't a model for that yet. I don't think that's really true anymore. It's very rare that we find a use case that we can't deploy. So one thing I always try and remind customers is, don't get focused on the tool. The tool is just what lets people innovate. Everything that we're doing, and the tools are important, right? But everything that we're doing has to be about enabling the human. Otherwise, why are we doing it? Many of you have heard me talk before about the Dell use case, internal use cases. I've spoken for hours at length. I promise you I'm not going to go through them again. But one commonality that you'll notice in the majority of our use cases internally is that they all center on the human. They're all about bringing that artistic spark out of people that maybe even you wouldn't consider natural artists, salespeople, people like myself. Our belief is that if we enable these humans and we ensure that they have as much access to data as it's safe to give them, and don't limit them in the way that they access this data. If we provide our teams with access to data that they consume in a way that's meaningful to them. If you think about how we traditionally consume data in the past, it was, here is your SharePoint, here is the PDF. And now we're in a stage where we can have intelligent conversations with our data. It's the same data that was there before, but we're unlocking the way that people can use and consume it. That in itself triggers that spark, because now I can learn and consume data in a way that suits me. I am uniquely human. I am different from everybody else in this room, and the thing that gets my spark going is very different from the thing that gets everybody else's spark going. This is how we get to innovation. There is no one-size-all-fits method in the way that you consume data, right? We've learned this a long time ago. The most interesting thing is we can see that when we do this, when we provide humans with these new ways to access data, whether it's talking into a traditional BI tool through human language, or just allowing people to combine different data products in ways that previously they didn't have access to, what we see is we get new use cases, we get new outcomes, often outcomes that were never planned for. In the deployment of our projects, the most simple thing we did was just give our teams access to data that they all already had access to. That was one of our first use cases. But the amount of innovation that came out of it because of their ability to interact with the data in different ways just spun off use case after use case. We saw improvements in the way teams' processes worked because they realized they were no longer locked into the traditional way of doing things. They were able to look ahead and see the better future. So, a choice for you all, a nice cheerful picture to end the day with. I'm an AI optimist, and the reason I'm an optimist is because I don't believe there's any point being a pessimist. Pessimist is Armageddon. right? That's the story. There's no point worrying about Armageddon. If it happens, we're all done. So I like to believe that utopia is the road that we're all heading towards. But I'm also a bit of a realist. So, bit of a sanity check for all of you. The number creeps up all the time, depending on who you ask and how pessimistic they are. But I think within kind of the heads of the majority of the major AI companies, the number's about 20% today. I love the way people say, there's a 20% risk we get Armageddon. That sounds, odds are pretty good. What we fail to remember time and time again is that the probability of this risk is entirely dependent on people like us. The risk goes up or goes down depending on what people, like the people in this room, choose to do. Decision makers, innovators, technologists, we're the ones who get to define and decide what we do with data, how we expose data, how data is managed. And most importantly, we get to build a world where data gets to inspire, empower, and encourage all of us for that better future. Now, we can obviously make a choice for the quick buck and do something quick and easy, but we know ultimately whether it's wrong. I'm a great believer that the road to utopia is through incremental improvements. I don't believe that you can make, massive step changes. Society doesn't accept it. As humans, we're bad at, sudden changes. Incremental utopia is the way to go, which is why I always ask every audience that I speak to join me on this path. Let's take these small steps to improve every single day. Let's get the artistic spark flowing. Let's be the ones to think about what that better future looks like and what our role in that better future is. If we get to enable, inspire those around us, we can ignite their spark too. And do you know what? It's a wonderful process. Go into any studio, any game studio, any VFX studio, and see what's happening in those places every single day. People are passing the spark around. They're igniting each other's interest. They're getting each other's juices flowing. We need to encourage more of that in our businesses as well, because what we do, whether we like it or not, is art. Think of yourselves as artists. It puts you in a much better and more positive frame of mind in the decisions that you make with data. So, if you like the sound of Armageddon, do us all a favor, stay in bed. Don't listen to anything I just said, just don't get up tomorrow, that'd be great. If you want to join me though, on the road to utopia, 3 things: imagine, inspire, and make something amazing for the good of all. Thank you.